Hey everybody, my name is Corey Jewett. Welcome to the Bullets locker room here. This is the baseball locker room, and we are here for the 2019 baseball season preview. Joining me today are senior Jonny Bray, junior Ryan LaCoe, and senior Sam Dobbins. Of course, Johnny and Sam are pitchers, and Ryan is an infielder. So we have a lot of questions for the guys. It's not really baseball weather out there, but we're hoping the weather turns soon, and these guys will be headed to spring break in sunny Florida here this coming weekend. So, Johnny, we're going to open things up with you. You know, last year, not a great year by our standards by any means, but, you know, you can always build off the positives, build off the negatives. So, what were some big takeaways from 2018?
Well, really, like you said, not a great year for us, but one of the biggest things I think we can take away is like a shift in attitude and really like recognizing that we're capable of playing well and like winning big games and beating very like good teams, and we have a lot of talent on this team. And it's really just about going out there and having the right attitude and from the get-go and like not complaining. And it's cold for everybody when you're out there, and like, you know, it's how we compete and how we bounce back. And so I really think attitude is the biggest. But
it was just an up and down season. We lost some close games early. We came back, didn't have 2 weeks after spring break. But we beat Swarthmore, who made a whole run to the College World Series as well. You know, Ryan, talking about the weather last year, I mean, it was just incredible. You guys started to pick up momentum at the end of spring break with a couple big victories, and then bam, you come back, we get a big snowstorm, and you can't take the field for 2 weeks. And then we jump into play. Of course, we've already had 3 postponements this week already to the start of the season. So just talk about the weather and how that plays a factor on the team, particularly when you have, you know, new guys and new people playing new positions.
Yeah, I definitely think that the weather was a huge factor last year. It made it tough to like get into a groove, and it, you know, caused a lot of our games to get canceled and pushed off like later into the season, which we ended up playing like 4 or 5 game weeks, which really made it tough for, you know, the pitching staff and, you know, guys just to get, you know, into the rhythm later on in the season like that. So I also just think that like it was a big reason why like the power numbers were down too last year. I felt like, you know, Chuck didn't hit as many, you know, home runs as he had his junior year, but I mean, it was cold for both teams, so we have to take that into account. But just I think like the biggest thing was just like the fatigue towards the end of the season because all the games got pushed back. So.
You're playing every day, you're trying to train, you're trying to get, you know, the pitchers on the off days, you're trying to get some work in too. You definitely need to recover quickly when you're playing 4 or 5 games a week. And like you said, our power numbers were down too, and that could be attributed to just not getting those cuts and live game action. You can hit all day in the cage, but it's not quite the same as facing changes in the pitching styles and changeups versus fastballs and everything too. So, you know, Sam, turning to you now, Ryan mentioned Chuck. Obviously, we lost some other key starters last year. You throw Logan Sneed there at the third base, who was an all-conference performer a couple years ago. Chuck was all-region. And then, you know, you look at Brad DiMartino, too, who was a big starter, big innings guy for us on the mound, too. It seemed like the last couple weeks of the season, he was throwing 9 innings every single game. So talk about the loss of some of those starters and how the team is going to make up for those losses.
Yeah, losing guys like Chuck and Brad and Logan, it's a big loss. But we got a lot of guys stepping up, filling positions that need to be filled, people moving around. So I think we'll be fine. But they're definitely big losses.
Of course, Brad was that number 1 starter for us last year. He had 60 innings in the mound last year, which was 28 more innings than anybody else. But Johnny, looking into this season, 2019, what kind of goals does the pitching staff have?
Well, this is probably big for me, but really big for the whole team. But really limiting walks and just finding our control and location back again, because it just felt like we were falling behind every account, you know, every at bat, and we just couldn't get ahead. And then when we would get ahead, like one bad bounce here, and like all of a sudden it leads to a big inning, and like, so really, I feel like this team now, like we have established guys coming back. You know, Jack Havard was not with the team last year, but he is now, and he's a big help. He locates. So excited to have him back. You know, I feel more comfortable now in my second year back since being out. You know, Sam, another senior pitcher, Brennan Wright, senior pitcher. So we got some guys, some older guys on the staff, and I think some really good young talent, some young freshmen, a nice little young lefty who can locate real well, and I think that's going to be like the biggest difference. It's just like limiting the walks and limiting guys on base and just making the other team beat us by like getting hits and like producing instead of like giving it to them. But
Will Warman looks good too.
Oh yeah, Wally looks good.
Now, Ryan, Coach Campo and I also talked about the defensive lineup out there, and one of the things we talked about was the fact you've played all 4 positions during your time here, a feat that hasn't been equaled since Corey Beddick back, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. So if Corey watches this video, hey, Corey, how you doing? So, Ryan, talk a little bit about the defensive lineup. We have some familiar faces taking up some new roles within the infield, and then some new people stepping into the outfield as well.
Yeah, I mean, last year it seemed like, if you looked out in the field, it seemed like we had a really young squad. Obviously, we had like Logan and Chuck that graduated last year, but for the majority of the team that was out there was sophomores and freshmen. So it's exciting to have like a bunch of guys coming back, stepping into roles that they were usually in. The defensive lineup seems to be like shuffled a little bit more than it was last year. Obviously, Joe's playing second base, with St. John stepping in at shortstop, but for like the majority of it's the same. I'm moving to third. And then I guess like Chesney's he's going to first too, but I feel like from an off-season rep standpoint, everybody looks pretty like good and comfortable in their position. So I think it'll be exciting to see good athletes step into different positions. I think they'll handle it well.
So, sticking with you, Ryan, the batting order. We lose Chuck in the middle of the lineup, Logan in the middle of the lineup too. Both of them had great seasons last year offensively. Logan set the school record for hits late in the year with 6 in a game, and of course Chuck was Chuck. He was always hitting the ball. So talk about the batting order, how things are stacking up here, and who are you excited to see take some cuts this year?
Obviously losing Chuck and Logan was a big toll. But Joe Giovinco, he's returning. He was like second team or honorable mention last year. So he had a big year last year. I'm expecting him to really come back and light it up this year. Sean Murphy too. He put up some good numbers last year. So I really think that he'll light it up too. And then Ryan Augustus also. He's got the power stick. So I'm expecting some balls to fly out. And then even like new guys like Harry Quimby, he's looked really good in the off season against live pitching and stuff. So I think that we'll be pretty good up and down the lineup this year. I'm hoping to see a laser show every game. So we'll see.
Who doesn't like the long ball, right? Exactly. And of course, Quimby, one of those guys battling for Chuck's spot in the outfield too, alongside Kobe Wolf, I believe, is who Coach mentioned. So this question is kind of for all of you. Obviously, we played a lot of different venues during the course of the year. The closer conference teams, we play at our place, we play them at their place, and then the ones that have traveled a little farther, we have double headers, so we end up at Kirchhoff or their place for a full day. Looking at all those venues, what are some of your favorite venues in the conference to play at? Johnny, we'll start with you.
Well, I really like Swarthmore and Haverford. They got the 2 real nice fields. I mean, Johns Hopkins is nice, but it's turf, and something about having a real field, real grass and dirt underneath you is real nice. And especially Swarthmore's new stadium that they just got put in, and they got a really nice spot out past center field where people can sit and watch the game and eat up there, and just like the whole stadium looks real good. But yeah.
Yeah, as a pitcher, I can't imagine you like Hopkins short porch very much. I'm just going to say that right now. I saw a highlight video of one of their guys, a lefty, knocking one out of the park that I think went over the avenue outside the stadium. So that can't be good for a pitcher's perspective. How about you, Ryan?
I thought the game last year at Hopkins was a lot of fun. There was definitely a lot of good energy under the lights, so I really liked Hopkins, and there's something about that 300-foot left field porch that,
hitters like it.
Yeah, gets me going, so.
Sam, how about you?
I mean, Hopkins is a really nice field, but definitely stinks to pitch there. I like Swarthmore. Swarthmore is a very really nice stadium, brand new, really cool backdrop. So, yeah.
Of course, the number one choice is Kirchhoff, always, right? Everybody likes playing at home. So just taking into account the conference schedule, we talked about this earlier before we went on air. We basically have 20 some odd conference games. I think it's 18 actually. that take place, it seems like, in 4 weeks from April 1st to April 30th, all kind of squished in there. It's a challenging schedule. You've got some great teams out there. Hopkins, Haverford have all contended for the conference title. Swarthmore had an incredible season last year. They ran all the way to the College World Series, and you can't count out anybody on any given day. I feel like every team in the conference can step up and beat each other. It's that good of a conference. So, Jonny, we'll start with you for this first question. How challenging is it to play in the Centennial Conference, and how much do you enjoy it?
Well, I think we're pretty lucky to be in a conference that has a lot of competition and that is very talented. And in terms of how difficult it is to play, it's definitely hard to come out and, especially when a team like Swarthmore comes out of nowhere basically and just really dominates the conference like all of last year. But always consistent opponents in like Johns Hopkins and Haverford, who've been like very good since I've been at college. But I think it's better to play against good competition than it would be to not. So I like it. I like having teams, and I like being pushed by other teams that, like maybe Johns Hopkins had our number the past few years, but like we're looking to get them this year.
It's definitely pretty crazy to play a bunch of kids that come from all over the country. I like Swarthmore. They're loaded up with like California and Texas kids. So you see a lot of good competition on like a daily basis, which is really nice. And I just feel like on any given day, any team can really go out there and give the other opponent a tough time. And it doesn't matter who they are, whether it's like number 3 Swarthmore or McDaniel. Like anybody can win on any given day. So I think that's a lot of fun, and that's what creates like a good atmosphere in the Centennial Conference.
And Sam, I'm going to let you answer the last question. With everything the team went through last year and the building blocks we have for this year as well, what are the expectations for this team this year, and what do we need to get to the Centennial Conference playoffs?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, as a team, we're not going to take anything for granted this year. So the biggest thing is we're going to go into every game with a winning mentality. Not let down when anything goes our way, because we can always come back, and it shows we've had a lot of comeback victories in the past. So we just got to keep that mentality going strong the whole entire season, and obviously our goal is to make it to the Centennial Conference playoffs and win a championship. So we'll see what we can do.
Gotta love those walk-off victories, like LaCoe's sacrifice fly. Walking off last year. It was a great game. So, guys, that does it for my questions. So thanks for joining me. For Jonny, Ryan, and Sam, my name is Corey Jewett signing off for Bullets Baseball. Go Bullets.